It started like any other ordinary day, but by the time the sun had set, her entire world had changed. She had always believed she knew who she was, a daughter, a sister, just another girl navigating life like everyone else. But one discovery shattered everything she thought was true. She had never questioned her childhood. Her parents were loving, though a little overprotective. They always seemed cautious, careful about what they shared. She chalked it up to being strict, maybe even a little old-fashioned. But then came the moment that changed it all, the day she stumbled upon something she was never meant to see. It happened by accident. A misplaced document, a forgotten photo, something so small yet so powerful that it sent her world spinning. At first, she thought it was a mistake, something that didn't belong to her. But the more she looked, the more the puzzle pieces started falling into place. And that's when the doubt crept in. She had seen her name, her full name, on an official-looking piece of paper. But underneath it, something was wrong. The name of the child listed there wasn't a girl's name. It was a boy's. And the date matched her birthday exactly. Her hands had trembled as she held the paper, her breath caught in her throat. It had to be a coincidence, a clerical error. But deep down, she knew better. She had spent her whole life being told who she was, never questioning it. But now, one piece of paper had unraveled the story she had always believed. Her heart pounded as she dug deeper, searching for more answers. Old family photos, medical records, anything that could prove this was all some kind of mistake. But with every discovery, the truth became harder to ignore. There were no baby pictures of her younger than a certain age. The early childhood memories she thought she had suddenly felt distant, unclear. And then she found it, the final confirmation, hidden in a dusty box in the attic. A letter, written in shaky handwriting. A confession. Her parents had kept a secret for years, one that had shaped her entire identity. She wasn't just their daughter. She was someone else entirely before they decided to change her life forever. She had so many questions. Why had they done this? What were they hiding? And most importantly, who was she, really? Before she could process it all, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned slowly, clutching the letter in her hands. Her mother stood in the doorway, her face pale. "You weren't supposed to find that," she whispered. And just like that, everything changed. Her mother's voice was barely above a whisper, but the weight of her words hit like a storm. She wasn't supposed to find that letter. She wasn't supposed to know the truth. But now, there was no turning back. Her hands tightened around the old, crumpled paper as she forced herself to meet her mother's eyes. A million thoughts raced through her mind, but none of them made sense. How could her own parents, people she had trusted her entire life, hide something so huge from her? And if this was true, then who had she been before they decided to change everything? She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Her mother took a hesitant step forward, her expression unreadable. "I was going to tell you," she said, her voice laced with something between fear and regret. "One day. When the time was right." The girl shook her head, her chest tightening. "When was the right time, Mom?" she asked, her voice trembling. "When I was 20, 30, or never." Her mother didn't answer. Instead, she let out a shaky sigh and sat down on the edge of an old wooden chest, rubbing her temples like she was bracing herself for a conversation she had been dreading for years. "You have to understand," she started, carefully choosing her words. "We did what we thought was best for you." The girl clenched her jaw, staring down at the letter in her hands. "Best for me," she echoed bitterly. "You lied to me my whole life. How is that best for me?" Her mother swallowed hard. "Because we were trying to protect you." "Protect me from what?" A heavy silence filled the attic. Dust particles floated in the dim light from the single window, making everything feel frozen in time. Her mother hesitated before finally meeting her gaze. "From the people who would have never let you live a normal life." The words sent a chill down her spine. What does that even mean? Her mother exhaled sharply, like she had been holding something in for years. "It means, you were born into a situation that put you in danger. A situation we had no control over. When we took you in, we made a choice. We gave you a new life, a new identity, because we thought it was the only way to keep you safe. She felt like the ground had been ripped out from beneath her. Took me in, she repeated, barely able to process the words. So, I'm not even your daughter? Her mother flinched. You are. In every way that matters, you are. But biologically, no. You were born as someone else, to someone else. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't just about a name on a piece of paper. This was about everything. Her entire existence. Who were they? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her mother hesitated again. And that hesitation spoke volumes. The girl's breathing grew shallow as her mind filled with terrifying possibilities. Are they alive? Her mother lowered her gaze. We don't know, she admitted. They disappeared before we even had a chance to meet them. All we knew was that they were in trouble, and they left you behind with instructions to keep you safe. To make sure no one ever found you. The weight of those words settled deep in her chest. Someone, her real parents, had been running from something. And whatever they were running from had been dangerous enough that they had chosen to give up their own child just to keep her safe. But safe from what? She took a shaky step back, suddenly feeling like the walls were closing in. This wasn't just a family secret. This was something much bigger. Something terrifying. She needed answers. She turned back to her mother, her pulse pounding in her ears. Who were they running from? Her mother's lips parted like she wanted to say something, but before she could answer, there was a sound from downstairs, the front door creaking open. Both of them froze. Her mother's expression shifted instantly, from sorrow to alarm. We can't talk about this now, she whispered urgently, standing up. Put everything back. Act normal. The girl's heart pounded as she hurriedly stuffed the letter back into the box, her hands shaking. Her mother motioned for her to follow, and together, they made their way down the narrow attic stairs as quietly as possible. As they stepped into the hallway, the girl caught sight of her father standing near the front door, speaking in hushed tones with someone she didn't recognize. The stranger was tall, dressed in a dark coat, his face partially hidden by the dim lighting. His posture was stiff, his voice low. We need to talk, he said, his tone firm. Her father nodded grimly. Let's go to the study. The girl exchanged a glance with her mother, who looked more tense than she had ever seen her before. Who was this man? And what was he doing here, on the same night she had uncovered the truth? Something was very, very wrong. The girl's breath felt heavy as she watched her father lead the mysterious man into the study. She had never seen this person before, but something about him made her uneasy. He carried himself with authority, his voice steady but edged with something that felt like urgency. Whatever this conversation was about, it wasn't casual. Her mother touched her arm lightly, a silent message to stay quiet. But how could she? Her entire world had just been turned upside down, and now a stranger had appeared at their doorstep. It couldn't be a coincidence. The girl's pulse pounded as she stepped closer to the study, her ears straining to catch any part of the conversation. The door wasn't fully shut, and through the small gap, she could hear muffled voices. We've kept our end of the deal, her father said, his voice low. She doesn't know anything. A pause. Then the stranger spoke, his tone unreadable. That's not what I heard. A chill ran down her spine. They were talking about her. Her mother gripped her wrist, pulling her away from the door before she could hear more. Not here, she whispered, her expression tight with worry. The girl hesitated, her frustration growing. Mom, please, she whispered back, her voice trembling. Tell me what's going on. Who is he? Her mother shook her head. Not now. The girl clenched her jaw but followed as her mother led her down the hallway and into the kitchen. The dim lighting made the room feel colder than usual, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound between them. For a long moment, her mother just stood there, gripping the edge of the counter, her back turned. Then, finally, she sighed and turned to face her daughter, her eyes filled with something that looked an awful lot like fear. That man, she started, her voice barely above a whisper, is someone we hoped you'd never have to meet. The girl frowned. Why? Who is he? Her mother hesitated before choosing her words carefully. Connected to your past. The answer only raised more questions. My past? You mean my real parents? Her mother's expression tightened. Yes. And no. Frustration burned in the girl's chest. She had spent her entire life thinking she knew who she was, and now, every answer only led to more confusion. "Mom, please," she said, her voice cracking. "I need the truth. No more secrets." Her mother exhaled shakily. "The truth is, we weren't the only ones involved in keeping you hidden. There were others. People who helped us." The girl's stomach twisted. "Helped you do what?" Her mother swallowed hard. "Make you disappear." The words sent a wave of nausea through her. "Disappear?" she echoed. "You mean, my real parents didn't just leave me with you? You took me?" Her mother's silence was answer enough. The girl felt like the air had been sucked from her lungs. Oh my God. Tears burned behind her eyes as a horrifying realization sank in. This wasn't just a case of hidden adoption. This was something else entirely. Something much darker. Her mother stepped closer, her hands reaching out, but the girl took a step back. "You kidnapped me." "No." Her mother's voice cracked with desperation. "It wasn't like that. You were in danger. We didn't have a choice." The girl shook her head, her mind racing. Who was I running from? Who were they running from? Her mother opened her mouth to speak, but before she could answer, the sound of the study door opening made them both freeze. Heavy footsteps echoed down the hall, and then the man appeared in the doorway. His sharp eyes landed on the girl instantly, studying her like he was looking for something, like he was measuring her against whatever he had been told. Her father was right behind him, his face unreadable. "She knows," he said simply. The stranger sighed, rubbing his jaw. "Well, that complicates things." The girl clenched her fists. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "What do you want from me?" The man studied her for a long moment before finally speaking. "I want to know if you remember anything." She frowned. "Remember what?" His expression darkened. "Your real life." The room fell silent. Her heart pounded. "I don't," she admitted. "But I need to know the truth." The man exchanged a glance with her parents before nodding. "Then it's time you learned everything." The girl's breath caught in her throat. Whatever was coming next, she knew her life would never be the same again. The girl's hands felt ice-cold as she gripped the edge of the kitchen counter. Her breath was uneven, her heart hammering against her ribs. The stranger's words echoed in her mind. Your real life. What did that even mean? She had spent every moment she could remember in this house, with these people, her parents. And yet, everything she thought she knew was crumbling right in front of her. The man took a slow step forward, his gaze locked onto hers. You don't remember anything, he asked again, but this time, there was something different in his tone. Almost like he was testing her. She shook her head, her voice barely above a whisper. No. The man exhaled sharply and turned toward her parents. That might be the only thing keeping her safe, he muttered under his breath, though she still caught every word. Her father rubbed his forehead, looking exhausted. We've done everything we could to protect her. The girl's patience snapped. Protect me from what? She demanded, stepping forward. Why did you take me? Who was I before all of this? The stranger's gaze darkened. That's what we need to find out. Her mother flinched, shaking her head. No. She doesn't need to know everything. The girl clenched her fists. Yes, I do. Her mother turned to her, desperation in her eyes. Sweetheart, please. The more you know, the more danger you're in. The girl's stomach twisted. There was that word again. Danger. She swallowed hard, fear clawing its way up her throat. Who is after me? The man hesitated before finally saying, the people who took your real parents. Her breath hitched. Took. They disappeared, the man said grimly. And if they're still alive, they're hiding. Just like you have been. A chill ran through her body. She had spent years believing her biggest struggles were normal, fitting in, growing up, figuring out who she was. But now, everything had shifted. Her father cleared his throat, his voice heavy. You weren't supposed to find out this way. She turned to him, her eyes burning. Then how was I supposed to find out? Were you ever going to tell me? Her mother wiped at her face, her fingers trembling. We thought, if we kept you safe long enough, It wouldn't matter anymore. The girl's breathing grew shallow. But it does matter. It matters right now. She turned back to the stranger. Who are these people? Why were my real parents running? The man's expression was unreadable. That's what I need to confirm before I say anything. She frowned. What do you mean, confirm? The man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded photograph. He hesitated for a moment, then handed it to her. She took it with shaky fingers and slowly unfolded it. Her heart stopped. The picture was old, slightly worn around the edges, but it was clear enough. A young couple stood in the center, smiling. They looked happy, but there was something in their eyes, something off. It wasn't joy. It was something closer to fear, like they were trying too hard to look normal. And in the woman's arms was a baby. The girl's throat tightened. That's you, the man said quietly. She knew it before he even said the words. She could see it, the shape of her eyes, the faint curl of her hair. She was the baby in the picture. Her fingers trembled as she stared at the couple holding her. These are my parents, she whispered. The man nodded. Yes. Tears blurred her vision as she tried to process it. This was them. The people who had brought her into the world. The ones who had left her behind. Or had they? A horrible thought crept into her mind. She swallowed hard and looked up. Did they give me away, or was I taken from them? The room fell silent. Her mother looked away, her father stiffened, and the man's face gave nothing away. The answer was clear. Her breath came in short gasps as the weight of it all crashed down on her. She had been stolen. Her entire life had been a lie. She felt dizzy, the walls around her blurring. Nothing made sense anymore. If her real parents were in danger, if someone had taken them, what did that mean for her? And why was she still in hiding? She lifted her gaze to the man. Are they still looking for me? His expression darkened. Yes. A shiver ran down her spine. Then what happens now? The man glanced toward the window, as if checking for something. Now. We make sure they don't find you first. At that moment, the front porch light flickered. A shadow moved outside. The girl barely had time to process what was happening before her father's voice cut through the silence. They're already here. The girl's breath hitched as her father's words sank in. They're already here. Her heart pounded against her ribs, her pulse roaring in her ears. She turned toward the front window, but the man in the coat stepped in front of her, blocking her view. His expression was tense, calculating. Stay away from the windows, he ordered in a low voice. Her mother grabbed her wrist and pulled her back. We need to go, she whispered urgently. But the girl's feet felt glued to the floor. Her entire world had just shattered, and now she was expected to run again. She had so many questions, so much she still didn't understand. But there was no time for answers. A heavy knock rattled the front door. Everyone froze. The girl's father moved quickly, reaching under the couch and pulling out a small black bag. The zipper screeched as he yanked it open, revealing a handgun inside. The girl's stomach flipped. Her mother gasped. No. Not in front of her. Her father's jaw tightened. We don't have a choice. Another knock. Louder this time. More urgent. The man in the coat moved swiftly toward the door but didn't open it. Instead, he pressed his ear against the wood, listening. His fingers hovered near his waist, where the outline of a weapon was barely visible beneath his coat. The girl's breathing was shallow, her mind racing. Who is it? She whispered. The man didn't answer right away. Then, after a long pause, he muttered, they didn't knock last time. Her blood turned to ice. Last time? The realization hit her like a freight train. If these were the same people who had been after her parents, why would they knock at all? Why wouldn't they just barge in like before? Something was different. A voice called from the other side of the door. We know you're in there. Her body stiffened. The voice was calm, almost too polite. But there was something chilling about it, something that made the tiny hairs on the back of her neck stand up. The man in the coat hesitated before finally speaking. Who are you? Silence. Then, after a few seconds, the voice responded, we just want to talk. Her father let out a bitter laugh. That's a lie. Her mother clutched her arm tighter. We can't stay here. But the girl wasn't sure if running was an option anymore. Whoever was outside already knew where they were. The man in the coat turned to her, his expression unreadable. You need to trust me. She hesitated. Why? Because I might be the only one who can get you out of this alive. Before she could respond, the doorknob twisted. The girl's breath caught in her throat. It was locked, but the way it moved, it wasn't just someone testing the door. It was slow, deliberate. Whoever was out there knew they were afraid. Then, suddenly, a crash. The front window shattered. Her mother screamed. Her father pulled her back, shielding her as glass rained onto the floor. The man in the coat moved fast, reaching into his jacket and pulling out his weapon. Go. Now. But before anyone could move, a figure stepped through the broken window. Dressed in black, face covered by a mask, the intruder moved with terrifying ease, as if they had done this 100 times before. They didn't say a word. They didn't have to. The girl's entire body locked up. Then, in the chaos, her mother did something unexpected. She ran forward, placing herself between the intruder and the girl. Please, she begged. She doesn't know anything. Just let her go. The intruder tilted their head slightly. The girl's heart pounded as she saw something in the person's gloved hand, a small device with a blinking red light. Not a weapon. A tracker. Her stomach dropped. They weren't here to take her. They were here to mark her. And that meant this wasn't over. It was just the beginning. The girl's heart pounded as she stared at the blinking red light on the device in the intruder's hand. It wasn't just a tracker, it was a signal. Someone else was coming. Someone worse. Her father acted first. He lunged forward, knocking the device out of the intruder's grip. It clattered to the floor, the red light flickering wildly. Without hesitation, he swung a fist, but the intruder dodged effortlessly, twisting around him like a shadow. In one smooth motion, the masked figure grabbed the edge of the broken window and flipped back outside. The girl barely had time to process what had just happened before the man in the coat grabbed her wrist. We need to move. Now. Her mother hesitated, eyes darting between the shattered window and the front door. But where? They already found us. Her father didn't wait. He picked up the tracker, studying it for a split second before throwing it out into the street. If they're following this, let's give them something to chase. The girl barely had time to react before her father pushed her toward the back door. The night air was cold against her skin as they rushed out into the alley behind their house. The streetlights flickered, casting eerie shadows along the pavement. Then, sirens. Her stomach twisted. Was that for them? Or was it something worse? The man in the coat took the lead, moving swiftly through the alley, signaling them to follow. There's a car waiting for us a few blocks down. We need to get there before they realize the tracker was a distraction. The girl could barely keep up, her legs weak with fear. She still didn't understand who these people were or why they were after her. But deep down, she knew this had something to do with the truth her parents had been hiding all these years. As they turned a corner, a car screeched to a halt in front of them. The girl's breath caught in her throat. The driver's side door opened, and another masked figure stepped out. But this time, they weren't alone. They were holding a gun. Her mother gasped, pulling the girl behind her. The man in the coat tensed, his hand inching toward his own weapon. The masked figure spoke, their voice muffled but calm. It's over. The girl's father took a slow step forward. She doesn't know anything. Let her go. The masked figure didn't lower their weapon. It's not about what she knows. It's about who she is. A shiver ran down the girl's spine. Who she was. Before she could even process the words, the sound of screeching tires echoed down the alley. Another car appeared, but this time, it wasn't an enemy. It was their escape. The driver, someone she didn't recognize, leaned out the window. Get in. Chaos erupted. Her father moved first, charging at the masked figure. A gunshot rang through the air, but he managed to knock the weapon aside before the bullet could hit. The girl's mother grabbed her arm, yanking her toward the car. The man in the coat pulled out his weapon and fired a warning shot into the air, forcing the masked figure to back off. Go, 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 the driver shouted. The girl barely had time to throw herself into the backseat before the car sped off, tires screeching against the pavement. She twisted in her seat, watching as the masked figure disappeared into the distance. Her heart was racing, her hands shaking. "Who are they?" she whispered. Her father, breathing heavily, exchanged a look with her mother. There was fear in his eyes, but also something else. Something deeper. Regret. Her mother reached for her hand, squeezing it tightly. "Sweetheart, there's something we need to tell you." The girl swallowed hard. She already knew. She had always felt different, always sensed that something about her life wasn't quite right. Now, as she looked into her parents' faces, she realized that the truth had been hiding in plain sight all along. She wasn't who she thought she was. And now, the people hunting her knew it too. The girl sat in the backseat, her breath still uneven from the chase. The city lights blurred past the window, but her mind wasn't on the streets outside. It was on the words her mother had just said. There was something they needed to tell her. She turned to face her parents. "Just say it." Her father exhaled deeply, rubbing a hand over his face as if trying to gather the right words. "We weren't always your parents." The car felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier. The girl's fingers tightened around the seatbelt as her heart pounded. What does that mean? Her mother's eyes were filled with sorrow. "We took you in when you were a baby. You were left with us." The girl shook her head. No, that doesn't make sense. "You raised me. You're my parents." "We are your parents," her mother said softly. "But we didn't give birth to you." She felt her stomach drop. It was too much. Too many questions, too many emotions colliding all at once. "Then who are my real parents?" Her father hesitated. "We don't know. That's the truth. We were given strict instructions to never ask, never look, never tell you anything. But they're the ones looking for you now." The girl stared at them, her mind spinning. "So all of this, the people chasing us, the threats, it's because of them?" Her father nodded. "Whoever they are, they didn't want you to know the truth. And now that you do," his voice trailed off, but the message was clear. She swallowed hard. "So what do we do?" The man in the coat, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "We disappear." The girl turned to him, studying his serious expression. "That's it. Just run." His jaw tightened. "It's the only way to keep you safe. The people after you, they don't stop. They don't forget." She wanted to scream. To demand answers. To know why she was being hunted, why her entire life had been built on a lie. But deep down, she knew she might never get those answers. Her father reached out, squeezing her shoulder. "We'll figure this out. Together." Tears stung her eyes. She had always believed she knew who she was. But now, that identity felt like it had been ripped away, leaving her with nothing but questions. Yet, as she looked at the two people who had raised her, protected her, and risked everything for her, she realized something. They might not have been her biological parents, but they were her parents. And that was all that mattered. The car sped toward the outskirts of the city, the bright lights fading behind them. The road ahead was uncertain, full of danger and secrets waiting to be uncovered. But for now, she had her family. And that was enough.